What happens when a prince forgets he is a guest and not royalty? In just 37 seconds, Prince Harry went from composed interviewee to the man who got escorted out of one of the most prestigious news programs on television. This is the story of how a single interview on 60 Minutes turned into a complete disaster. The studio lights were hot. The cameras were rolling. Anderson Cooper sat across from Prince Harry, ready to dive into what was supposed to be a candid conversation about life, family, and the transition away from royal duties. The audience at home had no idea they were about to witness something nobody expected. Anderson Cooper opened with a simple question. A softball, really. Something to ease into the conversation. Prince Harry, thank you for being here tonight. I want to start by asking about your new life. How have you adjusted to living outside the royal spotlight? Harry shifted in his seat. There was something in his eyes. Something tense. Well, Anderson, I think the better question is why it took so long for someone like you to actually ask me the real questions. Everyone tiptoes around the truth. Anderson smiled politely, but you could see it. That little flicker. The confusion. This was not the answer he expected. I appreciate that, but I am asking you now. So, let us talk about your truth. What do you want people to understand about your decision to step back? Harry leaned back, arms crossed. His tone was already shifting. What I want people to understand is that I did not step back. I was pushed. There is a difference, Anderson. A big difference. And frankly, I find it interesting that you are framing it like it was my choice. Anderson paused. He kept his composure. Professionals do not react. They listen. They redirect. I am not trying to frame anything. I am just trying to understand your perspective. Can you explain what you mean by pushed? Harry let out a short laugh. It was not a friendly laugh. Come on, Anderson. You have been doing this for how long? 30 years? 40 years? You know exactly what I mean. The institution does not want people like me speaking out. They want silence. They want control. And when you do not play their game, they make your life miserable. The tension in the room was building. You could feel it through the screen. Anderson kept his voice steady. I understand that you have had challenges, but this is your opportunity to share your side. I am here to listen. Harry shook his head. Are you, though? Are you really here to listen, or are you here to get a soundbite? Because let me tell you something. I did not come here to give you some sanitized version of my story. I came here to tell the truth. The real truth. Not the version that makes everyone comfortable. Anderson took a breath. He was still calm. Still professional. And I want to hear that truth. So please, go ahead. Tell me what you want people to know. But Harry was not interested in answering. He was interested in confronting. You know what I find fascinating? The media. You all act like you are on the side of the people, but you are just as bad as the institution. You protect the narrative. You twist the stories. You make villains out of victims. Anderson raised an eyebrow. I think that is a pretty broad statement. Can you be more specific? Harry leaned forward, pointing. Specific? Fine. You want specific? How about the fact that every time I try to speak my truth, people like you question my motives? How about the fact that the press destroyed my mother and nobody held them accountable? How about the fact that I am sitting here on your show and I already know you are going to edit this to make me look bad? Anderson did not flinch. I can assure you, we are not going to edit this to make you look bad. We are going to air what you say. But I do think it is fair for me to ask you to back up your claims. You are making very serious accusations about the media, about the institution. What evidence do you have? Harry scoffed. Evidence? You want evidence? My entire life is evidence. The fact that I am here, thousands of miles away from my family, is evidence. The fact that I had to leave everything behind just to have peace is evidence. Anderson nodded slowly. I hear you, and I think a lot of people sympathize with your situation. But part of having this conversation is being willing to engage with questions, even difficult ones. Harry stood up. Not completely, but enough that it was noticeable. Enough that the camera operators glanced at each other. Difficult questions? You think you are asking me difficult questions? You have no idea what difficult is. Difficult is growing up in a fishbowl. Difficult is watching your mother die and then having to walk behind her coffin while the world watches. Difficult is being told to smile and wave while you are falling apart inside. Anderson kept his voice soft. I am not trying to minimize your pain. I am just trying to have a conversation. Harry sat back down, but his jaw was tight. Then stop interrupting me. Stop trying to control the narrative. Let me speak. Anderson gestured with an open hand. You have the floor. Please. But Harry did not continue. He just stared. And then he started again, but this time his tone was sharper. You know what your problem is, Anderson. You sit here in your fancy studio with your fancy job, and you pretend to care about the truth. But you do not. You care about ratings. You care about making yourself look good. You care about staying on the right side of power. Anderson blinked. This was crossing a line. I think that is unfair. I have spent my career asking tough questions to people in power. I have covered wars, disasters, injustices. I take my work very seriously. Harry laughed again. It was bitter. Oh, please, spare me the hero journalist routine. You are just another cog in the machine. Just another person who pretends to care, but does not actually do anything. The room went silent. Anderson looked directly at Harry. His voice was still calm, but there was an edge now. I invited you here to have a conversation, to give you a platform to share your story. But if you are going to use this time to attack me personally, then I think we need to reconsider whether this interview should continue. Harry did not back down. There it is, the threat. See, this is what you people do. The moment someone challenges you, the moment someone does not play by your rules, you shut them down. You are proving my point. Anderson took a slow breath. Yes, this is not about shutting you down. This is about respect. I have treated you with respect from the moment you walked in here. I would appreciate the same in return. Harry crossed his arms again. Respect? You want to talk about respect? How about respecting the fact that I have been through hell? How about respecting the fact that I am trying to protect my family? How about respecting the fact that I do not owe you or anyone else an explanation for my choices? Anderson nodded. You are absolutely right. You do not owe me anything, but you agreed to come here. You agreed to do this interview. So I am confused about what you expected. Harry leaned forward again. What I expected was for you to actually listen. What I expected was for you to use your platform to amplify the truth instead of playing these stupid games. What I expected was for you to be better than this. Anderson set his notes down. I am going to be very clear with you. I am here to listen. I have been listening. But listening does not mean agreeing with everything you say. And it does not mean I cannot ask you to clarify or explain. That is what journalism is. Harry shook his head. No, that is what you call journalism. Real journalism is about holding power accountable. Real journalism is about telling the stories that nobody else will tell. You are not doing that. You are just going through the motions. Anderson sat back. I think we are going in circles here. Let me ask you directly. Do you want to continue this interview, or would you prefer to stop? Harry stared at him. Are you seriously asking me that right now? Anderson nodded. Yes, I am. Because this is not productive for either of us. If you want to have a real conversation, I am here for it. But if you just came here to vent and attack, then maybe this is not the right format. Harry stood up. This time, all the way. Unbelievable. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You invite me here, you ask me to open up, and then the second I do not say what you want to hear, you threaten to end it. This is a joke. Anderson remained seated. I am not threatening anything. I am giving you a choice. We can continue with mutual respect, or we can end it here. It is up to you. Harry pointed at Anderson. You know what? I do not need this. I do not need to sit here and be lectured by someone who has never walked a day in my shoes. I came here in good faith, and you turned it into an interrogation. Anderson stood up now, too. His voice was firm. This was not an interrogation. This was an interview. And if you cannot see the difference, then maybe you are not ready for this kind of conversation. Harry stepped closer. Not ready? Not ready? I have been dealing with people like you my entire life. People who think they know everything. People who think they have the right to judge me. I am done with it. Anderson held up a hand. I am not judging you. But I am also not going to stand here and let you attack me for doing my job. This interview is over. Harry laughed. It was loud, angry. Of course it is. Of course you are ending it. Because you cannot handle the truth. You cannot handle someone calling you out. Anderson turned to the producers. Can we please escort our guest out? Harry threw his hands up. Wow, escort me out? Like I am some kind of criminal? This is rich. This is absolutely rich. Two producers approached. They were polite but firm. Sir, if you could come with us, please. Harry pulled his arm away. Do not touch me. I will leave on my own. He turned back to Anderson one last time. You are going to regret this. You just made the biggest mistake of your career. Anderson did not respond. He just watched as Harry walked toward the door. But Harry was not done. He stopped at the door, turned around. And just so you know, this is exactly why people do not trust the media anymore. Because of people like you who pretend to care, but really just want to tear people down. Anderson finally spoke. I hope you find the platform you're looking for. Good luck. Harry slammed the door behind him. The studio was silent. The crew looked at each other. Nobody knew what to say. Anderson sat back down in his chair. He took a moment, collected himself. Then he looked at the camera. Well, that was unexpected. We will be right back after this break. But there was no break. The cameras cut. The lights dimmed. And just like that, one of the most explosive interviews in 60 Minutes history was over before it even really began. Let us rewind for a second. How did it get to this point? How did a conversation that was supposed to be about healing and moving forward turn into a full-blown argument? From the very first question, Harry was defensive. He was not there to answer questions. He was there to make a point. And that point was that everyone was against him. The institution, the media, even the person sitting across from him, trying to give him a voice. Anderson Cooper is one of the most respected journalists in the world. He has interviewed presidents, war criminals, survivors of unimaginable tragedies. He knows how to handle difficult conversations. He knows how to push without being aggressive. He knows how to listen. But Harry did not want to be listened to. He wanted to be agreed with. And when that did not happen, he lashed out. Think about the moment when Anderson asked him to back up his claims. That is not an unfair question. That is journalism. If you are going to accuse an entire institution of pushing you out, if you are going to say the media destroyed your mother, you have to be able to explain what you mean. You have to be able to provide context. But Harry took it as an attack. He took it as Anderson not believing him. And instead of explaining, instead of using the opportunity to actually tell his story, he turned it into a fight. And then there was the personal attack, calling Anderson a cog in the machine, saying he does not care about the truth, accusing him of only caring about ratings. That was the turning point. That was when Anderson had to make a choice. Does he let this continue? Does he let his integrity be questioned on his own show? Or does he stand up for himself? He chose the latter, and he was right to do so. Because here is the thing. You can have sympathy for what someone has been through. You can understand that they have experienced trauma. You can acknowledge that their life has been difficult. But that does not give them the right to treat other people poorly. It does not give them the right to lash out. It does not give them the right to make demands. Harry came into that studio with a chip on his shoulder. He came in expecting a fight. And when Anderson did not give him one, when Anderson remained calm and professional, it only made Harry angrier. Think about the language Harry used. He kept saying, "You people," as if Anderson was part of some conspiracy, as if every journalist is the same, as if everyone who asks a question is the enemy. That is not the mindset of someone who wants to have a conversation. That is the mindset of someone who has already decided that nothing anyone says will change their mind. And when Anderson gave him the choice to continue or stop, Harry acted like it was a threat. But it was not. It was a boundary. Anderson was saying, "I will talk to you, but not like this. Not if you are going to be disrespectful. Not if you are going to attack me for doing my job." That is what a professional does. They set boundaries. They do not let people walk all over them just because they have a title or a story. Harry stood up. He made it physical. He escalated. And at that point, Anderson had no choice but to end it. Because once it gets to that level, once someone is standing over you, pointing, raising their voice, it is no longer an interview. It is a confrontation. And Anderson was not going to engage in a confrontation. He was not going to give Harry the satisfaction of losing his cool. He stayed calm. He stayed composed. He did exactly what he should have done. The moment Harry said, "You are going to regret this," it was clear. This was not about the interview anymore. This was about control. Harry wanted to control the narrative. He wanted to dictate the terms. And when he could not, he threw a tantrum, and the final comment at the door, the parting shot, blaming Anderson for why people do not trust the media, that was projection. That was Harry trying to flip the script, trying to make himself the victim one more time. But Anderson did not take the bait. He wished him luck. He let him leave. And he moved on. That silence in the studio after Harry left said everything. The crew knew. The producers knew. Everyone watching knew. This was not Anderson's fault. This was not the media being unfair. This was one person who could not handle being asked to explain himself. And when Anderson looked at the camera and said it was unexpected, there was no anger in his voice. There was no satisfaction. There was just professionalism. Because that is who Anderson Cooper is. He does not gloat. He does not retaliate. He does his job. So what really happened in those 37 seconds? What pushed Harry over the edge? It was not one thing. It was everything. It was the fact that Anderson did not bow down. It was the fact that he asked follow-up questions. It was the fact that he treated Harry like any other guest, not like royalty. Because that is what Harry expected. He expected special treatment. He expected Anderson to nod along and agree with everything. And when that did not happen, he could not handle it. The irony is that Harry came on the show to talk about being pushed out, about being silenced, about not having a voice. But the moment he was given a platform, the moment he had the chance to actually speak, he used it to attack the person trying to help him. That tells you everything you need to know. This was never about telling his story. This was about control. And when he realized he did not have it, he walked out. Anderson Cooper gave him every opportunity. He was patient. He was fair. He was respectful. And in return, he got accusations and insults. But he did not let it rattle him. He did not let Harry derail the show. He ended it with grace. He ended it with dignity. And that is why Anderson Cooper is still one of the most trusted voices in journalism. Because he does not play games. He does not stoop to that level. This was supposed to be a moment, a big interview, a chance for Harry to connect with people, to share his truth, to be heard. But instead, it became a cautionary tale, a reminder that having a platform is not the same as having something to say, and that being a guest means showing up with respect, not entitlement. The cameras cut, the lights dimmed, and Prince Harry walked out of that studio having proven nothing except that some people will always find a way to be the victim, no matter how many chances they are given to be something more. But let us go back to the beginning, one more time. Because there were warning signs, signs that this interview was going to go sideways. Look at his body language in those early moments. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes darting around the room. He was defensive before Anderson even asked the first question. That first answer set the tone. When Anderson asked how he had adjusted to life outside the royal spotlight, Harry immediately went on the attack, accusing Anderson of not asking the real questions. Anderson tried to redirect. He tried to give Harry space to actually answer. But Harry was stuck in his narrative. And the narrative that everyone is out to get him. And then came the personal attacks, calling Anderson a cog in the machine, saying he only cares about ratings. Those were attacks on Anderson as a person, and they were unfair and unacceptable. That was when Anderson had to make a decision. He said, "If you are going to attack me personally, then we need to reconsider whether this should continue." It was not a threat. It was a boundary. But Harry took it as proof of conspiracy, as proof that he was right all along. Harry stood up. He got in Anderson's space. He pointed. He shouted. And through it all, Anderson remained seated, remained calm, remained in control. When Anderson stood up and said this was an interview, not an interrogation, it was honest. Harry was not engaging in an interview. He was fighting. And when Harry said he had been dealing with people like Anderson his entire life, it revealed everything. Harry was not seeing Anderson. He was seeing everyone who had ever held him accountable. Anderson said, "I am not judging you, but I am not going to let you attack me for doing my job. This interview is over." And it had to be, because there was nowhere else for it to go. Harry laughed. He mocked. He accused Anderson of not being able to handle the truth. But the truth was clear. Harry could not handle being questioned. He could not handle being treated like a regular guest. When Anderson asked the producers to escort Harry out, it was necessary. The interview was over, and Harry reacted like he was being treated like a criminal. The producers approached politely. They asked him to come with them, and Harry pulled away, told them not to touch him. His final words to Anderson, "You are going to regret this. You just made the biggest mistake of your career." That was not a prediction. That was a threat. It was Harry trying to intimidate, trying to make Anderson second-guess his decision. But Anderson did not flinch. He did not respond. He just let Harry dig himself deeper. And Harry did. He stopped at the door, turned around, made one more accusation, one more attempt to blame Anderson for the failures of the media. And Anderson, to his credit, wished him luck, told him he hoped he found the platform he was looking for. No anger, no bitterness, just a professional ending to an unprofessional outburst. The door slammed. The studio fell silent, and everyone who was there knew. This was not Anderson's fault. This was not the media being unfair. This was one person who came in with an agenda and left with nothing. Anderson sat down. He took a moment, and then he looked at the camera and said it was unexpected. Because it was. Nobody expected it to go that way. Nobody expected Harry to self-destruct so completely. But in a way, maybe it was not that unexpected. Maybe the signs were there all along. The demands before the interview. The defensiveness from the first question. The refusal to actually engage. Harry wanted a platform, but he did not want a conversation. He wanted agreement, but he did not want questions. He wanted control, but he did not want accountability. And when he did not get those things, he lashed out. Anderson gave him every chance, every opportunity, every benefit of the doubt, and Harry threw it all away in 37 seconds of unchecked anger. This was not a story about the media being unfair. This was not a story about a victim being silenced. This was a story about entitlement, about someone who expected special treatment and lost it when they did not get it. And the saddest part? Harry had a real opportunity. He had one of the best interviewers in the business sitting across from him, ready to listen. He had a massive audience waiting to hear his story. He had a chance to connect, to explain, to be understood. But he wasted it. He turned it into a fight. He made it about himself versus everyone else. And in the end, he walked out having proven nothing, except that some people are their own worst enemy.